Good morning. All right. There we are. Okay, cool. We're on. We're alive. Okay. Welcome to Sunday Night Live and Monday Morning Live, depending on where you are. And we don't need this. There we go. Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. Wonderful week about to start. And so here we are. Let's see, we got everybody on. Australia, yay. Upstate New York, East Coast. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Cool. So let's get started. Let's get started with Sunday Night Live. And I really want to thank you all for being here because, just like you, I'm always looking for answers and always looking for the truth. And it's so hard to find. It was always hard to find. We can go back to the dark ages where people were illiterate, didn't know how to read, and all the knowledge was kept by the clergy. Then we had Mr. Gutenberg come along and gave us a printing press, and there exploded the Renaissance, and we had a whole new era in human history, at least on the western side of the world. The eastern part was they didn't go through the dark ages, but we in the western side did. But now we know how to read. Problem now is that we're not sure that what we're reading is true, as you all know. In fact, we could probably be pretty clear and pretty sure that what we're reading is usually not true. So, as I said, it's hard to find the truth out there, whether you're in the dark ages or where we maybe during the Renaissance and stuff, it was easier. But anyway, here we are, where the truth is manipulated all the time, and very methodically and comprehensively, and so unless you have a very good foundation of knowledge, it's hard to know what you're reading is true or not. So that's why what I would recommend to people is start reading the original manuscripts and stop reading people's opinions about things, because their opinions are going to be different than what they read, even if they agree with it and they tell you why they agree and all that. Anyway, it's best to have your own foundation. And the goal actually of what I do during these sessions and everything else when I'm working with people is to just well, it's one thing to have learned how to read and write and do arithmetic, but it's what we didn't learn was that we should question it, what we read. And sadly, now everything's becoming digital, as you all know, and people are no longer reading books, which is a tragedy, because books can't be changed. They can only be burned, like in Fahrenheit 451. You all might remember that novel, where I guess that's the temperature at which paper burns, and they were burning books. So now they don't have to, because we've thrown them away, voluntarily thrown them away, and we've accepted this digital world in which we're all reading digital information that can be edited at any time by those who run this. And by the way, from what I understand, I'm sure most of you know this, that very soon our access to the internet will be extremely limited. We'll probably have to have some sort of special ID to get on, and it'll all be run by what they're calling artificial intelligence, which is basically the sum total of human knowledge minus heart minus soul, and that's what they're calling artificial intelligence. Anyway, so I think we have a short time now. We have the window's closing, but we have a short time now where we can share information. So let's really take advantage of it and share the truth. And when we're speaking, I think we should really have some respect for each other and realize that if someone's um, agreed to listen to you, be sure that you return that respect by speaking only the truth as you know it. Um, as I said, the truth is so hard to find that once you find it, let's share it and spread it and scream it from the rooftops. Okay. So um, anyway, so the idea now is for me. I'm gonna just tell you what I know, what I've come to know over the multiple decades that I've been around in this particular Earth suit, and I'm not going to say anything that's not true because I don't really know the things that are not true. I don't study them and don't look for them, and I don't fabricate them and all that. So anyway, that being said, let's all remember that we are doing a Sunday Night Live that we do every week, and it's Monday morning in Asia. And as always, if you're in the United States or anywhere right now and you need help because you have CFCs, chronically fermenting cells, which again, for everyone who's new, um, the what the world knows as the word cancer um, is really on a cellular biological level, basically cells that have learned to successfully to survive successfully on a new operating system called fermentation, rather than the standard normal way of producing energy um, in multicellular organisms with something that's called mitochondria, are these little organelles inside of cells. Anyway, very efficient use of glucose and oxygen to produce lots of energy, and we need lots of energy. We need it's about 56 kilojoules per mole of energy, and those are just units. But basically, that's what we need. Whether as what cells need to operate, whether it's an elbow cell or a rapidly beating heart cell, doesn't matter. Brain cell, they all require the same, or a CFC, chronically fermenting cell, and that's what they need. It's called a delta ATP. And so, and it's the fundamental things that cells must do is they must produce energy that they get from manipulating, modifying substances from their environment, such as glucose and oxygen, or in the case of a plant will take carbon dioxide and water and then use the energy from the sun and produce the ATP, which is basically um, a carrier of electrons, and it's those electrons flowing that is called electricity, which is the um, mechanism by which life exists. And when those electrons stop flowing, and you've got flat lines on your EKG and your EEG, etc., life is no longer exists. All right, so a cell must get a certain amount of energy in order to maintain its shape, to establish itself as separate from the rest of the environment in which it exists, and then the rest of the energy, which is about 45%, can be used for cellular work. But fundamentally, the cell must make energy, and so when that gets disturbed, like it does by living in the 21st century, where you have all these toxins accumulating around cells and starting to um, basically take out the most vulnerable aspects of the cell, parts of the cell, which are the mitochondria, as we're talking about. Why are they so vulnerable? Because they use oxygen. And oxygen is kind of a double-edged sword. It's essential to life, but it can also produce that the same energy that comes from those oxygen, the electrons there in the O2 molecule. Oxygen is oxygen gas that we breathe is two atoms of oxygen put together. Those electrons that are in there are very powerful. Um, so anyway, so what they do is they produce what are called free radicals, and free radicals are damaging. Um, because of those free radicals in there, these are very vulnerable parts of the cell, and they get knocked out first. So when they get 30-40% of them get knocked out, the cell has to change its operating system from oxidative phosphorylation, which is what you call it inside of the mitochondria, to something known as substrate phosphorylation, i.e., glycolysis, i.e., fermentation. And then in order to be a successfully fermenting cell, it's got to modify lots of the enzymes and other things by modifying the gene expression, those genes that are being expressed. So some are silenced, some are turned on, and the end result is a new epigenetic presentation, a new genetic expression that is now capable of allowing this cell to function on a very inefficient system called fermenting cell. Your wa, your energy. And as we know, regardless of the tradition, healing discipline we're talking about, energy is fundamental. So when we talk about the Chinese perspective, it's called qi, and when we talk about the Indian perspective, it's called prana. And what do we call it in the West? Electromagnetic, flow of electrons. Anyway, foundation. Okay, and just just as an aside, as we know, energy and matter are really two different ways of looking at the same phenomenon. Um, they're just moving at different speeds. Okay, so anyway, so here we are, and anyway, if anyone has a problem with CFCs, my point there before I went way off is that an oasis of healing in Arizona is still there after 19 years and doing extremely well, ready to help anyone who's able to get there. So please contact them, and I'm obviously that's my center, and I will be always a part of whatever plan is going on with anybody, regardless if I'm there or not. And then, as you know, we're opening up here very soon, probably at the end of next month. Um, yeah, and so we'll be on two sides of the planet. And so, also, if for any reason the platform you're on right now goes out because I say the wrong thing or what is considered inappropriate, you can always go to Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. They're all the same. They're at Dr. Thomas Lodi, and you'll find it. You can go to the website, drlodi.com, and just go to the /live, and you'll find it. Or you can go to Twitter. Except on Twitter, it's Dr. Thomas Lodi, MD. Okay, so that's that. Also, I think May 1st is when we're going to start our different groups, and you'll hear more about that very soon. Now, should we jump right into the questions? Let me see. Newfoundland. Wow, how cool. Wisconsin. Ecuador. Yo. Washington State. Okay. Mount Airy. Wow. I don't even know where that is. Okay, so someone here, Scott, is talking about blood in the urine and uh, possibility of bladder and or prostate. PSA is up to 6. Um, there are many, many causes of blood in the urine, so you've got to have that investigated by somebody who actually knows what they're doing. It can be a urinary tract infection. It can be a CFCs in the bladder, and usually not prostate. CFCs is going to cause blood in the urine. Um, okay, so I can't get into yeah, California by way of Houston. So anyway, let's get into this. Okay, just real quick for Molly here, help anxiety recommendations, please. Uh, uh, Anxiety is what? Anxiety is basically, if you break it down, it's basically the physiological component of fear without any particular thing to be afraid of. It's just so you kind of like you're in sympathetic overdrive, you've got your cortisol flying, you've got your adrenaline flying, and all that sort of thing, and you don't have anything that you're really worried about or anything like that, and that we would call that anxiety. It's usually associated with multiple different kinds of worries, and worries are ideas about something that could happen, or might happen, or should happen, or could have happened, or should have happened, or will happen, or maybe happen. Well, anyway, all that stuff. So what I would say that you need to do is stop thinking, turn off the mind, and that's really what foundational to everything we're going to talk about today. And the foundation is how do we turn off the mind, which uh, works on its own accord. You know, it's very interesting about a heart. As long as a heart has blood supply, I mean, has blood available, even if it's removed from the body, will continue to beat. And if you cut those in half, they both beat. And if you cut them in half, they both beat. It's got an intrinsic um, mechanism by which it continues to beat. Unlike a skeletal muscle, because the heart muscle, that's a heart muscle. Unlike the skeletal muscle, which is a voluntary thing. So it's involuntarily just happens. It's got an intrinsic mechanism. Well, that's the same thing with our mind. Our mind, thinking is not like a voluntary process. You don't say, oh, I guess I'm going to start thinking now. Thinking is not something you decide to do. It's a thing that happens to you. And so to turn it off, you've got to take your mind and focus it on one thing. And that's hard to do because the mind flies. The mind has been likened to a fish that washed up on the shore and is just flopping around, going nowhere. But that's what the mind's like. And if you ever closed your mouth and listened to your thoughts, you would go, it's crazy what we think, or what happens in our minds. You know, billions of incomplete, fragmented concepts flying all over. I could have, tomorrow, yesterday. I wonder what you went to. It's kind of like, it's crazy. So anyway, um, so you got to try to grab one thing. And in India and uh, in Tibet and all the places where they do, been doing meditation for eons. They can use what some sounds which are, as you know, sound is the most fundamental vibration that there is. It underlies and is even more foundational than the vibrations and frequencies from light. Um, and so, So they use sounds, and in the Sanskrit language, they call them mantra, uh, and they have no meaning other than, I mean, you can come up with some intellectual meaning of what the words probably mean, but that's not the true function of the word. The word is a vibrational space. Um, and kind of like the word om, or om mane padme hum, or aditya hridakta punyam sarvshatru vinashanam. There's all sorts of different kinds of mantras. Um, and they're all vibrational places. They're not no meaning, and you're not praying to something. You're entering into a vibrational space. And regardless of your religious affiliation, if you're thinking that if you are a Judeo-Christian or Muslim of background, upbringing, and all that, and you say, well, we don't do that sort of thing. Well, actually, you do. And actually, if you go back to the first book of the foundation of all those three religions, called the Pentateuch in Judaism, i.e., five books of Moses, i.e., the Old Testament, and I'm not sure what Muslims call it, but basically, the first book in there, uh, in describing the way things came to be, you'll remember that God spoke everything into existence. First thing he spoke, let there be light. Okay, and actually, light turns out to be the bridge between spirit and matter. Anyway, so very foundational sound. So you go to a sound, and if you can focus on it 100%, which is very very difficult, it takes a lot of practice. Um, and there's one easier way to do that rather than having to find a mantra and all that. You can there is a mantra being spoken within you that is your life. It's called your breath. And it is this breath that is your life. And when the breath leaves, the body turns back to earth. Remember? Um, and no, it does not turn back to America, and it does not turn back to Philippines. It does not turn back to China, France, Germany, Africa, Thailand. It turns back to earth. So regardless of whether or not we all think that well, I'm a French man, I'm an American, I'm a Chinese, no, 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 no. We're all earthlings, and our bodies are made of the earth. This is our earth suit. And guess what the earth also provides for us? Everything we need to nourish and keep this earth suit moving. It produced. So we might call that earth food. It's a good name for it, since it arises out of the earth. And actually, it turns out to be exactly what we need to satisfy our biological requirements, right? Why do we eat? We eat because our body senses, because there's either a nutrient or energy deficit that needs to be filled, and that initiates a set of behaviors called, which allow that organism to obtain nourishment, to or, either or, and take care of an energy or uh, nutrient deficit. And once that has been satisfied, usually those behaviors of consuming end. That's called hunger, which most of us have not ever experienced unless we fasted for a long time. Most of us eat not because we're hungry, but because we have an appetite. Very different. We've discussed this before. So, yeah, anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's that. Um, so, yeah, anyway, so the end result of taking in whatever we take in to produce energy, and the energy is an electromagnetic form in the form of electricity. And as long as those electrons are flowing, we are alive. Okay, and that all comes out to the breath. Okay, so the breath is what the holy breath of God is what animates the flesh. It's the breeze in the trees. It's the power behind the oceans. It's it's that thing. Should we call it the X factor or the God factor? Anyway, um, so you can listen to it 100% of your attention. It's very difficult to do because your mind will fly within 2 seconds somewhere else. When you realize it, bring it back. Gone again. Anyway, just do that 2 minutes 5 times a day, and after about a month or 2 or 3, you'll say that you can actually get there and stay focused for 5 seconds. And somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds, being focused on there, you go through a doorway and you enter the land of now. You enter the land of reality. But you got to leave your mind outside because your mind, it doesn't work. You can't think about now. You can only experience it. By the way, that's why we love to dance and we love to surf and we love to ski and we love to listen to music and play music because, and of course, the all-time favorite is orgasm. But at those moments, we are not thinking. When you get up on that surfboard, you can't be thinking. You better just move. Same with that. You lift off from the top of the ski, the mountain to ski. Don't be thinking. Okay, you got to just move. Anyway, so we always seek out moments where our minds are turned off because we love it. Because why? Because when the minds are gone, we're not thinking, we are totally present in the moment called now. And when you're totally present in the moment called now, it's not happiness, it's not sadness, it's none of those things. It's called bliss. And we love it. And we seek it out. Problem is we get addicted to our method of getting there. So I gotta keep surfing. Follow those waves around the earth. Situation. And of course, sex is always available. I'm not sure we can always have it because of all the mores we have in our different societies about thinking it's really a bad thing and we should only do it under certain circumstances. If everything's right, then we can do it, which is probably the least most attractive way to get into that. So, but anyway, but another way of getting there, and the way that's permanent, and the way that gives you the control of it, where you're not requiring any particular mechanism or activity, and that is through the mind, by focusing on the mind, on the breath or whatever mantra or sound, and then leave your mind outside and enter the world of now, the eternal moment where God lives. That is real. Has never changed. Is already perfect. Anyway, by the way, that'll get rid of anxiety, and uh, so will it. Therefore, eliminate all of the physiological correlates of anxiety, which, as I said, are really pretty much the physiological correlates associated with fear. Um, It all goes away. The other thing that happens is you take your foot off the brakes of the immune system flies. So any problems you have inside are usually taken care of very quickly, especially if you have CFCs. Very important, psychoneuroimmunology. Okay, 2 minutes 5 times a day, 2 minutes 5 times a day. You can do it. You got to do it. All right, because otherwise we're all slaves of the mind, and our mind is what? It's either tumbling or it's at the whim of our stimulus input. What does that mean? We see something, we hear something, we feel something. So we're completely at the whim of our stimulus input, and that makes us pretty out of control. Um, like a leaf being blown around by the wind. Okay, so not rooted. So anyway, um, that's that. Let's get to some questions now. Okay. First question is from Karen. And she's saying, I was first made aware of CFCs in my breast almost 3 years ago. I have not done any conventional treatments other than a biopsy. I moved to Uruguay 16 years ago from California. Good move. Yay. Good move. And you had the foresight to do it 16 years ago. Okay. So medicine is practiced exactly like the US. Yeah, unfortunately, the whole world. The American Medical Association, i.e., Rockefeller, has metastasized, and every country in the world now holds that up as the gold standard. Um, and it's a complete, I just got to say it. The medical world, I know people are going to say, well, I got there, I was there. Okay, it's a complete lie. It's based on a complete misunderstanding of reality. Yeah, but I got this surgery done and I've been fine. Okay. I took this drug, and I'm fine now. Okay, that's good. So these are very rare instances. And is it the reason you got better because of the surgery or the drug? You don't know. We don't know. We're assuming that. Well, I mean, it was there and it was causing pain, and I took it out, so that's the reason. Yeah, yeah, but is that why you're well now? Is that why you're healthy? Anyway, there's so many things we really don't know, and we make a lot of assumptions. Um, but anyway, I'm just here to say that the vast majority of medical treatments not only don't help, they cause harm. And that reason is because it's on the wrong paradigm. And the paradigm is the disease paradigm, the disease model, which says that there are things out there called diseases, and they're going to get in you, and you're going to get in trouble, and you got to get rid of them. So you've got to go to these guys in the white coats and the flowing white gowns and get their magical potions. Yeah. Um, anyway, that's false. So medicine is practiced exactly like in the U.S. And so, other than getting blood testing done, I'm extremely limited as to the getting the kind of care I would like. The lump has grown slightly to what feels like 4 centimeters, but I feel better than I felt in years due to eating mostly raw and incorporating much of what you recommend. Removal of root canals, continual 3 weeks on, 1 week off, parasite cleanses, incorporating meditation, gratitude, and forgiveness. My question this evening is, what are your thoughts on uh, chlorine dioxide, basically? I've been taking it off and on, and it feels good in my body. I'm 71 years old, an herbalist, and I had a clinic in Santa Rosa, California, pharmacopoeia for many years with several MDs and herbalists on staff. Great, fantastic, Karen. So, Santa Rosa is where a good friend of mine is living, Dr. Robert Rowan. You may know him. I'm sure you do if you live in Santa Rosa. Brilliant, brilliant guy. That's also where, what's it called? The only, it's a water fasting place. Yeah. It's the only one I know of now in the U.S. That we, the most well known that I knew of was Dr. Herbert Shelton's um, fasting farm, or whatever he called it, in San Antonio. He had it for 30 years, I guess. But anyway, so you went from Santa Rosa to Uruguay. That's pretty cool. That means you've had a pretty mellow life. You've got these CFCs going on, and you're doing everything well. Here's the thing that I've learned about, and this applies to everyone actually. What I've learned is that the if you're doing everything that's possible, and it's still not resolving, then one or both things have happened. Either we haven't sufficiently got eliminated the toxins or the potential underlying cause that is, causing mitochondrial damage, etc., and or the immune system has been rendered unable to do its job. And the reason this happens, everyone, is because of the tumor microenvironment. Now, all cells have an environment in which they live. It's called the extracellular fluid, or the interstitial fluid. Some call it the extracellular matrix, but whatever, it's the fluid that comes from the arteries, through the arterioles, diffuses or is carried across the capillary membranes into this pool in which the cells live. And this pool called interstitial fluid is what the cells are reacting to. Because remember, cells are almost like little organs that are doing what they do in response to their environment, like we all do, right? If it's freezing outside, you're going to do what you need to do to get warm. If too hot, if noisy, whatever it is, we're always like responding to our environment. Well, cells do too, and they do what they do in response to the environment. So anyway, the environment, the microenvironment around the CFCs is full of acid. Because why? Because CFCs are fermenting, so they're producing lactic acid. So it's got a very, very low pH, which is a lot of acid. And furthermore, there's very low oxygen in there. So low oxygen, high acid equals the tumor microenvironment. And when the immune cells show up to take care of that, to eliminate, to deal with the CFCs, and they go through that environment, it's as if they get sort of intoxicated. And basically, that's it. They get intoxicated and they change. And so some of the cells actually get suppressed, so they're not working at all, like natural killer cells, activated T cells, macrophage, dendritic cells, not the macrophages. The macrophages actually start working for the tumor. They're called tumor-associated macrophages, and they actually support the tumor's growth. And even the cells that are already part of the matrix in there, of the like sort of the nest in which the malignant cells are living, one of the main cell type in there that kind of makes all the structure, the collagen and all that sort of thing, are called fibroblasts. And then you get tumor-associated fibroblasts, which are also going to help the tumor. One of the things they do is they spin a web of fibrin around the tumor, so that when the immune system sees it, it sees fibrin, which is part of the body, so it doesn't attack it. So it sort of camouflages it. Anyway, all these things are happening, and so no matter what we do, the immune system can't do its job, which is eliminate these CFCs. So what I would do, Karen, is I hope you had your root canals removed by a biological dentist who used ozone, ozonated water, ozone gas, maybe some lasers, and then sealed it with your blood, the platelet-rich fibrin, to seal it off. I hope that's how it was done. And then even then, there are some that aren't. You can't quite get everything. So you've got to retake a 3D cone beam CT to make sure that there's still no problems going on. But I would make sure of that for sure. Secondly, you're doing parasite cleanse. That's great. Continue that. And then the other one, you've done a juice cleanse. You're eating mostly uncooked food, which is wonderful, fantastic, because that's real food. I hope you did at least a 3, 4, 5, 8 week juice cleanse, where you're just drinking 3, 4, 5 liters a day, and you're just urinating, and your bowels are almost liquid at that point, and you're just basically changing the water in the aquarium, which we need to do at least 4 times a year. And then, but anyways, you're doing all that. You've done all that, and then you've being in Uruguay. Hopefully you're very rural and you're not being exposed to too many environmental toxins like plastics, BPA and glyphosate and all that other crazy stuff that we're exposed to, and all the nano aluminum that's being dropped on us when we sleep and when we're awake, and things like that. So part of a good part of everyone's program should include um, some sort of chelation, getting rid of the heavy metals. And remember, heavy metals are ubiquitous; they're everywhere, and they basically inactivate our entire all of our enzymes eventually. Um, that's why their effects or symptoms can be varied, multiple, because depending on which enzymes are being turned off. So anyway, we need to have some sort of active chelation with DMSA, um, which is an oral preparation. You take 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times a week at night before you go to sleep. DMPS would be the intravenous route of the same sort of thing. They have a different affinity for different metals, so that those there, the DMSA and DMPS, uh, they have the highest affinity for mercury. But once all the mercury's gone, they have different affinities. And then the other one is ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, also known as EDTA, and you can get that in the calcium form or the disodium form. Either way, you can get it IV, and you can also get them suppositories, and you can get them orally. But they have as their top, uh, the metaphors, they have the highest. Um, it's not affiliation. The highest affinity for is lead. But again, as the lead's taken out, it goes for other things. Aluminum, and they really both. By getting a combination of those, you'll be getting most metals. That's one thing. The other one for the binders, um, is really nice. Whereas some other binders like bentonite clay and things like that, they'll just grab everything, including the stuff you need. So those are very, very good for doing that, and also getting sweating and hot and moving, um, you know, infrared saunas and all that, just to keep those things moving out and reduce or eliminate completely, if you can, the exposure to all these things. So the environmental toxins, as well as the heavy metals and all that. Um, and then you're doing the meditation, so you're dealing with the mad woman inside your head, um, and you got to shut her up. So I got to shut my guy up, um, really hard, but we can do it. And then we've got to get, how are we going to take care of that tumor microenvironment? That's kind of my current quest, is to figure out how we're going to do that, because I really have come to know that that's fundamentally the problem. After we've done all the cleansing, that's the problem. Anyway, what I found that I'm really happy with is called methionine and enkephalin, which is a peptide produced in the adrenal glands, which mediates the relationship between the hormone system, the neuroendocrine system, and the immune system. But when given, it's only 5 amino acids, it's very small. But when given daily as little injections with an insulin syringe, um, the way you do it is you got to usually get a 20 milligram vial, which is a 20 milligram powder. You reconstitute it with 1 cc of sterile water. Then you take a half a cc, which will be 10 milligrams, and you give yourself a subcutaneous injection into your belly twice a day, 4 days a week. You can even do it 5 days a week. And that will undo most of the stuff that goes on in the tumor microenvironment. The other way that would be able to do it is like, the other thing is, because we talked about the tumor microenvironment consisting of a lot of acid and low oxygen. Of course, anything to get oxygen in there would be great. So hyperbaric oxygen at 2.2 atmospheres, hyperbaric oxygen an hour a day would be fantastic. Uh, exercise with oxygen mask, a high flow mask, oxygen mask. It's called EWAT, exercise with oxygen therapy. Um, and also making sure that you're getting your essential fatty acids, which are omega 3s and 6s. And actually, I thought I was going to sneeze. No, please, I don't want to. Because when I sneeze, it's like I do it, what, maybe once a week or every other week, every twice a week, or every other week. I sneeze like 10 times. It's crazy. Um, if we can raise the pH of, in other words, increase the alkalinity, decrease the acidity of the tumor microenvironment. Now, how would you do that? Well, because we know at a pH of 7.57 that CFCs cannot exist. Okay. Um, the problem is you can't say, well, I'm just going to eat everything that's an alkaline producing diet, which you could. But again, your blood, the mechanisms in your blood are designed to be very, very, very specific. And there are multiple ways of maintaining a pH that bounces around between two endpoints, and that is 7.35 and 7.45. So you can't get up to 7.57. You just can't. If you did, if your whole body got up there, your whole body would be inactivated. Okay, so the goal is, how do we get just that area? Well, Dr. Simoncini, you may have heard of, a doctor from Rome, um, who wrote a book called Cancer is a Fungus, which, I mean, made sense in a lot of ways, but it's just not true. It's just that funguses live and are part of usually tumor environments, and they're symbiotic. They help each other. So where there are CFCs, there are always fungus. But anyway, what he would use is he used bicarbonate, and it would which is alkaline. And the way he did it was he went through the artery that fed a particular organ. So let's say you had metastatic tumors in the liver, you go to the hepatic artery and you go in there, and that bicarb goes in there, and if you get that pH up, you'll completely change the tumor microenvironment. But in order to do that, you've got to have a very, a very experienced, technically gifted, skilled interventional radiologist who's willing to step outside of the box and do that for you. Very hard to find. The other way to increase the amount of voltage in all of our cells, which, by the way, is another way of looking at pH, alkalinity. And you know, a healthy cell is going to be most will be at its best at minus 22 millivolts. And the minus doesn't mean negative; it just means that they're talking about electrons. Electrons are voltage, basically. So let's make sure this microphone's close enough so you can hear. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, how do we get the voltage up? Because if you're trying to heal from a chronically fermenting cell wants to heal, it needs to get the voltage up to 70, minus 70 from minus 22. And in order to do that, it's got to have really powerful membranes, because it's the membranes of the cell that hold in the charge. They act like a battery to maintain the charge. And without a strong battery, you can't hold enough voltage. And it really comes down to, fundamentally, on the most fundamental level, if you can get the voltage up to 70, minus 70, which is about around a pH 7.57, it's gone. And if you don't get it up, it won't go. That's really like fundamental. So how do we get really strong membranes? Well, we eat a lot of healthy fats. Healthy fats are chia, hemp, flax, nuts, seeds, nut butters, seed butters, avocado. These are healthy fats because we need what? Omega-3 and omega-6. Do we need anything else? No. Those are the only ones that are essential. And I mean, we can get some we can get some saturated fatty acids, which we need to some degree. And the only way you can get that in the plant-based uh, uh, plant-based form is through coconut oil. Um, but again, the only ones that are essential are the omega-3s and 6s. Okay, so the omega-3s and 6s. And you can get that with chia and flax. Very, very good. Very important for other reasons too. So you eat a lot of them. 60 to 70% of the diet needs to be fat, high fat, healthy fat, not unhealthy fat. How much unhealthy fat should you have? Zero. Okay, and so eating a lot of chia, 6 tablespoons in a nut milk, soaked for at least 3 hours. Maybe you just put it in the refrigerator overnight. Um, Let it warm up to room temperature. You can put what you want on it. Put cinnamon on it. Put uh, organic vanilla bean or vanilla extract. You can even don't worry so much about the. I mean, the sugar is very important, but in order for you to eat this and enjoy it, and you have to put 1 teaspoon of honey mixed all in there with all the chia. It'll be absorbed slowly enough that it won't be a big deal. But whatever you need to do it to get that in, you eat those like 6 tablespoons a day. Plus, you take 2 or 3 tablespoons of flax seeds, grind them up, and then make a nut milk. Put that in a nut milk and make a smoothie, and put whatever else you want in there, blueberries or whatever. Make yourself a smoothie. You have those two things, and that's high fat. Then have at least an avocado every day, and eat some nuts, nut butters, nuts, seed butters, and all that. And do this for a while. It takes like 6 to 9 months to get our membranes enough membranes. Because remember, we're making new cells at a rate of 37 million per second, which is pretty fast. Um, yeah. Um, so you can imagine what happens in 6 9 months. Anyway, so once we get that up, it's taken care of. So those are the things I would work on for sure, Karen. And you're moving around all day long and active. You live in the rural. You're doing great. It's fantastic. Now, this is Julie, and Julie says that I had ER positive breast CFC lumpectomy followed by radiation 4 years ago, and among my myriad of supplements, I'm taking liposomal glutathione. Just heard that can feed active CFCs. Should I stop taking it? Well, glutathione is the chief antioxidant in our body. All of our cells make it, they need it. It's how they stay um, healthy, right? Very, very important. So, uh, now glutathione is really a very simple molecule. It's 3 amino acids. It's called the tripeptide. Um, and but so if you're taking liposomal, the assumption is because if you just took glutathione, went into your stomach acid, in the pepsinogen would break it down, and then when it got into your duodenum, your small intestines, it would get further broken down until you had three different. Just it's broken down into the three constituent amino acids, which can be absorbed because we can only absorb single amino acids. We can't absorb two or three or more. And so what you absorb them, and then they just go into the nutrient pool, and they're not necessarily going to become glutathione because they need a certain kind of enzyme system to turn them back into glutathione. Anyway, the glutamine and glycine, which are two of the amino acids, are extremely abundant in the body. The one that's least abundant and considered what they call the rate limiting amino acid is cysteine. So you can take N-acetylcysteine, NAC, NAC, and by eating a lot of that, your body, it will absorb that, and then all of your cells in your body will, especially your liver, will pick that up and start producing more glutathione. That's how you stimulate your body to make its own glutathione. Now, if you're taking it through liposomal, you bypass that digestive process, and I don't know how that works. If you get a tripeptide dumped into your thoracic duct through your lacteals that came in through your digestive process. And those three, that tripeptide is in your blood. um, if it doesn't get degraded, it would only be able to have an effect um, on anything that's in the blood, but not intracellularly where we really want to get it working, because it won't be picked up by a cell. It can't. So really, I would just say that I would not to do that and just take NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Now, this is an interesting question. It says that, let me see. Yeah, where was it again? Ah, where'd it go? Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Let me go back to Julie a moment. You had ER positive breast CFCs. We don't know. Okay, also, you got to do this. Both the radiotherapy and the radiotherapy that you had stimulated increased production of stem cells, CFC stem cells, which are what metastasize. And then the lumpectomy also did a similar type thing, spread them around. So you've got to be taking substances to eliminate um, CFC stem cells. And the big players in that arena are ivermectin, mebendazole, one of the other antiparasitics, vitamin C, curcumin, doxycycline, especially with breast CFCs love to go to the bone. And okay, so that's something you want to do also. Okay, now the question is, can immunotherapy cause CFCs to spread rapidly? All right, so we all remember what what they are calling they. You know what I mean? They. How's they spelled? It's spelled Rockfelle. Oh yeah, yeah, that's what it's spelled. So they are calling immunotherapy. Now, immunotherapy is, again, newspeak, like they say in 1984, right? War is peace, things like that. Um, anyway, it's not immunotherapy. Yes, it's a drug. It's another way of saying chemotherapy. But if you change the name, then okay. Anyway, now why do I say that? Well, how could I have the audacity to say that? Why would I say such a thing? Do I have any proof, Dr. Lodi? Yes. Um, so immunotherapy, what they call immunotherapy is basically they have discovered that the let me see how we do this. Yeah, they have discovered that part of the way that CFCs protect themselves from the immune system is that the they attach uh, to the T cell and prevent the T cell from going in and doing its job. So they figured out. So they call them these are point check inhibitors. Checkpoint blockade. It's called. Um, and so there is the part of the CFC that is going to bind to it, and then there's a place where you can bind to it. So if you put a block here or put a block there, it won't happen. So that's a pretty good idea. It's an interesting idea. However, it again demonstrates the complete lack of respect for nature, the complete lack of humility. There are 36 septillion, that's 21 zeros, chemical reactions going on inside of our bodies every second. And each cycle is uh, works flows into the next, and depending if there's at different levels, and it's all interrelated. It's an incomprehensible level of complexity. But we humans who built the plow and wound up with AI have decided that if I just block this one thing, we'll take care of it all. Do you realize that's not only audacity and arrogance, but it's extreme ignorance? Yes, red light therapy is great. Very, very good. You got to learn how to do it right. So you've got to work with someone that'll do it or study it really a lot so you can figure out how to do it. And you can use methylene blue and to enhance it and stuff. There's all kinds of anyway. Sorry, I just looked up at one of the questions came up. So anyway, um, so here's the problem. Now, when they came up with these checkpoint inhibitors, they called it actually a revolution in uh, oncology. A revolution. What is this? I have to verify to continue. My God. That was TikTok, 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 TikTok. Anyway, um, so the okay, so anyway, that's how it works. So they thought if they could just do this one thing. It turns out that this revolution in oncology turned out to be I don't know, not even a revolution, maybe a little small skirmish. What do they call it? Skirmish. Anyway, didn't amount to much. It turns out that when I looked at all the different um, drugs, chemotherapeutic agents. I'm sorry. What do they call it? Immunotherapy agents. Um, I saw that, and I looked at the efficacy. I saw that wow, this one gave progression-free survival an additional 5 months. This one an additional 4 months. This one an additional 6 months, and that's what they all did. Progression-free survival translated means, well, it didn't grow for 5 months. Didn't go away, just didn't grow. So I don't know how we're defining revolution, but probably the same way we're defining awesome, right? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome, man. That's awesome. What's awesome? Oh, he just bought some fruit. Awesome. That's an awesome shirt you're wearing. That's awesome. Well, what about that sunset over there? Yeah, awesome. Ah, right. So anyway, it's not a revolution, and those are things are not awesome. What's awesome is the sunset. Now, and a lot of those people that had that, okay, so they had progressive. That means they start. Then after that, it started to progress. So anyway, there was there've been some studies into this, trying to figure out why, and very interesting that there was a study that looked at, and then there's been many since that time, but they looked at the fact that these that people that receive the checkpoint inhibitors or the checkpoint blockades, PD-1, PDL1 blockers, programmed death ligand, programmed death. Okay. Some of them had paradoxically an increase in the progression, a rapid increase in progression during immunotherapy. Okay, so they call that hyperprogressive disease. You see, what you've got to do always when you're speaking scientific jargon, you've got to always, as soon as possible, make an acronym. And if you make this acronym, then you can use that from then on, and from that point on, and then you don't really need to communicate anymore. You're just using an acronym, and an acronym is a good way of not thinking. Yeah, it's like an idiom. Um, so anyway, so they call it HPD, hyperprogressive disease. So now, what they found out is that, okay, so the way this works is this. They used to say that, well, if the tumor is a hot tumor, the checkpoint inhibitors will work. If it's a cold tumor, they won't work. And what did they mean, hot and cold? Hot means that the tumor is like surrounded by these activated T cells, these CD8 plus cells, right? And they're just trying to get in there, and they can't get in there, they can't get in there, and they can't get in there. And you take away you block the inhibitor, and they go in. The cold tumor didn't get it, wasn't infiltrated. So regardless of whether or not you give them the checkpoint inhibitor, there's no T cells there to do the job. So in addition to that, they're finding out that even some of the quote hot tumors, they have their CD8 T cells surrounding it. However, it gets worse. Things get worse, and it has to do with the fact that these cells produce something called interferon gamma. Interferon gamma is called a cytokine, and it's kind of a message to recruit more immune cells to the spot, right? It's kind of like sending out an alarm. So, but they found out that the people with this hyperprogressive, but did not have what they call complete response. That's CR. It's no longer complete response to CR. They had an increase in tumor fibroblast growth factor, right? And something called B catechin signaling. What does that mean? That means that the fibroblasts, which are the little, like we mentioned before, those are part of the matrix of our body that produce collagen and produce the nest, or produce the stuffing of our body. They found out that what they do is it increases these guys that are doing not nice things when they're in a tumor microenvironment, right? Because they become tumor associated fibroblasts. Yeah. Increases them, and the B catechin signaling. B catechin. This has to do with cells being able to bind to each other, like a normal cell. Like your skin cells are all connected to each other, right? So one's not gonna fly off and start doing something else. So anyway, but anyway, it messes with that, and then it turns out that what's happening is it's now signaling the fibroblast growth factor, and it suppresses a few other things, including NAD plus, and you wind up with a problem. Okay, it results in a reduction of the SIRT1 mediated beta catechin and all that sort of thing. So anyway, they've got the mechanisms by which it works, and they figured out that, wow, I guess in some cases, even if they have a hot tumor, it's going to turn it into a more aggressive tumor. Wow. Okay, so the point here is this. First of all, that's not immunotherapy. What I call immunotherapy is, I understand that the immune system is way, way too complex for any human, and that includes scientists, to ever comprehend what the hell is going on. Okay, it's very, very complex. All right, so I accept that. So what do I want to do? Well, I realize that that the immune system has been toned down or shut off only around where the tumor is. I mean, it's still working. If I get a cold, it goes away and stuff like that, whatever. But cold is not, but I didn't, I use that word just because everyone understands it, but I don't think a cold is something you get caught. But anyway, so what I want to do is instead of deciding, aha, I can just block this one place, or I can do it, instead of thinking I can tell the immune system what to do, what I do in immunotherapy is just wake up, wake it all up, and let it do what it knows how to do. I don't know what it knows how to do. Nobody knows what it knows how to do. Okay, how do you wake it up? Well, you wake it up by making sure there's more T cells. How do you do that? By you give a naturally occurring peptide produced by the thymus gland called thymosin alpha 1, which stimulates the maturation of T cells. So you have more T cells. Okay, great. Now you got more T cells. Now we give that, as I said before, the methionine and enkephalin, which is also called MET5. Why MET5? Because it's 5 amino acids, MET from methionine. Or some in the literature, there's sometimes they call it MENK, which is M for methionine, and ENK is enkephalin. And those are all the acronyms. And of course, you got to know those acronyms if you want to be smart. So you give that, and that's going to wake them up again and let them do what they do. The other thing I do is I can give interleukin 2. Interleukin 2 is part of the uh, uh, mechanisms by which, just like the interferon gamma calls to action all these things, so does IL-2. So IL-2 will actually, and it will activate natural killer cells. It will do all sorts of stuff, but it turns the lazy, chronically inflammatory process into the acute inflammatory process, which is going to get rid of it because things get lazy. It's called the Th2, or it's called, and the macrophages are called M2, and they're just working for the guy. You bring them back to this. How do we do that? Fever will do it. Uh, and so will IL-2. And there are other ones too. I think IL-12 together with IL-2. Anyway, so what you do is you bring the immune system back to being acute, and then you can give something that's called N-acetylgalactosamidase, or also called nagalase for short. Um, and that will inactivate the macrophage. Well, this kind of just bypasses it. But remember, you don't want to activate macrophages when they're in the M2 condition. That means they're working for the other guy's side. You want to get them first to be M1s, and then you wake them up. And that's been always the problem with GC-MOF, is that it wasn't used. It didn't take that into account. So we can use the IL-2 and maybe IL-12 to wake up, or you can get a nice fever somehow. And we can give you get the TA1 to get your more T cells, use the MET5, and then we the IL-2, and then we give the GC-MOF. We just get everything alive and activated again. And by doing, and then we also learn to meditate, so we take our foot off the brakes of the immune system, right? We get rid of our fear and our anxiety, and we get rid of those things which are blocking the whole immune response. Get our bowels clean, get all that stuff clean. Because remember, about 70% by weight, at least, of the immune cells, immune apparatus, including what they call gut-associated lymphocyte, lymphatic tissue, which includes Peyer's patches and isolated lymph nodes all along the gut. And anyway, so 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So by keeping the gut clean, so that it's not diverting the energy of the immune system to taking care of it. In other words, keep the colon clean and eat nothing but earth food. You're doing all that, keeping your bowels moving and all that sort of thing. Okay, all those things will help the immune system do its job. So, yes, the answer to your question, the question was, can immunotherapy cause CFCs to spread rapidly? Yes, it can. And even if it doesn't work. I mean, I don't consider a few months of not growing anything worth pursuing. All right, so now, okay, This is from Tatiana, and she says, my April 2024 CT showed several small scattered solid and subsolid nodules after having been in remission since 2021. Complete lower right lobectomy in the lobe right lung. I've been on a strict vegan Qigong practice on a daily basis, juicing, meditating, traveling solo, yay, sleep 8 hours, no more root canals or amalgams. How can I help myself now? Hyperbaric oxygen, vitamin C, IV vitamin C. Yes, Tatea, all that, all the above. Fantastic. You've been on a strict vegan diet. It sounds like you're probably cooking a lot of it. And remember what cooking is, everybody. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, and I don't apologize for saying it. However, how's my pal Andy doing? Andy? You mean Andy Griffith? Or Andy Griffin in Barney Fife? No, no. I think he's doing okay as far as I know. I haven't seen him in a few weeks, but he was last time I saw him. He looked great, smiling as usual. Uh, so anyway, just a reminder about the word cooking is a nice little euphemism for thermally degenerating food. Now, when I say thermally degenerating, keep in mind, everybody, that I don't know you personally, so I can't say, I can't say this because I know you. I can just say because I know me, I know you, and that is you don't put your fingers in fire unless you've got a really, really, really messed up masochistic kind of uh, personality. Don't put your fingers in fire, and you don't put your clothing in fire, and I'm sure you don't put your money in fire, and so we conclude that you don't put anything of value into fire because why? Because you know that fire is destructive. So why would we take the products that God and nature produced for our nourishment and put it into fire? Why would we do that? Well, it somehow became part of our cultures, and it became part of what each the centerpiece of all cultures is what? What is the centerpiece around which all people of the same culture gather to exchange love, to exchange business ideas, to exchange friendship, it's called cuisine, eating, eating. So the central part, the central core, fundamental activity, which has become part of every human gathering, is eating. And eating what? The cuisine. The cuisine is just the food for that culture, right? Yeah. Graduation dinner, wedding buffet, funeral buffet, business lunch, romantic dinner, uh, whatever. Eating. Anyway, so when we're eating food that's been degenerated by heat, it's been spoiled by heat, it's no longer what nature made, and it's now called, it's artificial, it's artifact. And the body sees that, and the body has to react to it. Anyway, it turns out when you study the subject, and if you do study the subject, you'll find out it's poison. Does that mean you can just start eating uncooked food the rest of your life? No, nobody can. No, I mean, no one. I only know maybe 3 people who've been able to do that for extended period and be okay about it. Most of us can't. All right, and so that's okay. But while you have CFCs, do it for 100% until the CFCs are gone, and then then go to like what do you call it, a 80/20 type program like that, right? Yeah. So if you do that, then you're going to be getting, you only 20% is going to be heated. And make sure you don't fry, grill, broil, bake, any of that sort of thing, because if you do that, then you're in addition to just killing the enzymes and making and rendering the food now dead, you are now adding poisons called Maillard chemicals. And by the way, don't believe me, look it up. If I had which I will have when we start our groups, I'll have we'll all be on Zoom, so I can share the screen and I'll show you the research myself. But right now, just look it up. Look up Maillard chemicals. There's one really special Maillard chemical called acrylamide, which you get in, I don't know, bread, anything that's been baked is going to for sure get it. And acrylamide is not only a carcinogen. Nah, it's also a neurotoxin. But I don't know, it tastes good, you know what I mean? So, anyway, so if you're doing that, if you're eating, so try to reduce the amount of uncooked food. But it sounds like you're doing really, really wonderful. Now, if you were in remission since 2021 and then 2024, you've finally showed, I'm assuming, Tatiana, that you did not get fooled by the great hoax of 2020, right? And didn't wind up getting injected by anything, right? I'm assuming that. And your root canals were taken out and your amalgams. So make sure I go get another one of those, as I said, but let's get your immune system working. Does hyperbaric oxygen work? Absolutely. 2.2 atmospheres for an hour a day. It's be wonderful. Vitamin C, yes. But make sure if you're taking vitamin C, make sure you have already taken care of your physiological requirements for vitamin C. Because remember, what do we all have? We all have, because we eat most, I'd say, 99% of the human race. I don't know how else to say it. That would be a little more palatable, but so I won't. I'll just say it the way it is. 99% of the human race eat dog food. They don't eat human food. That's right. And as a result, you heard that expression, sick as a dog? And you heard that other expression, healthy as a horse? Well, just consider what they eat. Anyway, so, eating dog food is not in our best interest, okay? It doesn't satisfy our nutrient and energy requirements. And it gives us actually a lot of toxins. We don't even eat real dog food. We eat the kind of dog food that we feed our pets, because a dog in the wild is not going to barbecue, and a dog in the wild is not going to fry or broil or bake. A dog in the wild is going to eat the corpse fresh, before 72 hours is up, because it'll know that you don't eat corpses after 72 hours. Or if there's enough dogs around, they'll in a pack kill an animal and actually eat it alive. So sometimes they eat it alive. But anyway, that's that. Now, wait, just excuse me a second. Let me grab this thing. My cat. One of my cats. I have 3. Okay. Next question. Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that. Vitamin C. If you're taking vitamin C, okay, there I go. Okay. Now I remember where I was. The reason I got into dog food was this. Because we eat dog food. Now remember, dogs make ascorbate, which is vitamin C. They make ascorbate. So do raccoons, so do cats, so do bears, so do rhinoceri, so do elephants. Okay, there's only a few mammals that don't make ascorbate, and so therefore it's a vitamin. And so therefore we're all deficient. We have what's called chronic subclinical scurvy. Subclinical means you don't quite have you're not manifesting it, you don't know it. And because end stage scurvy, you're bleeding out of your nose and your eyes, and you're just falling apart. So we don't have end stage, but we have chronic subclinical, which means we're not meeting all of our physiological requirements of ascorbate. How important is the ascorbate? Well, it's how we make neurotransmitters. It's how we make dopamine. It's how we make epinephrine. It's how we make serotonin. Kind of important in that regard. Number two, it's how we heal wounds. It's how we put the foot on the brakes of certain things. It's how we absorb iron. It's how we rewrite the epigenetic code that's been miswritten by CFCs. Yeah, it's how we produce collagen. If a lot of people are out there eating collagen thinking they're gonna get some benefit out of it, you can't, because collagen is a protein, and the proteins have to be broken down into amino acids. Then the amino acids are absorbed, and they don't necessarily reassemble back into collagen unless they're in the right environment with the right enzymes. So you didn't get any benefit by that. It was just like kind of eating a protein shake or something, an amino acid shake. But if you have enough ascorbate, which is essential to making collagen, right? If you're well nourished and you have enough ascorbate, you'll make your own collagen. Yes. So anyway, we all have chronic subclinical scurvy, which means we're not having our physiological requirements met, which means that when you sit down to get an IV of vitamin C, if you've got a big deficit, it's going to fill up the deficit first, and then, because remember, the whole purpose of IV vitamin C is to get the plasma ascorbate level up to 350 milligrams per deciliter, which then overcomes the amount of catalase, the enzyme that breaks down hydrogen peroxide, that's in the blood. It overcomes that, and it spills into the tissues. And when it spills into the tissues, it runs into iron or copper, which it will, or especially around CFCs. It will produce hydrogen peroxide. And fortunately, the CFCs don't have catalase, so they can't, whereas healthy cells do. Forget the effects. You won't get the effect you're looking for. Or maybe if you did a high enough dose, like 100 grams, 150 grams, maybe the last 5 minutes, it'll get up to therapeutic for a very short time. So anyway, if you're going to get the IV vitamin, make sure you get a pure sodium ascorbate powder. Dissolve it in water. All right, so 2 teaspoons would be about 8 grams. Dissolve in a liter of water, and then just sip on it very slowly throughout the day. 7 to 7, 7 to 7, sip, 7 to 7, sip, 7 to 7. Why do you do that? Because the body will only absorb 200 milligrams at one time. So you just take a small sip out of that 8 grams, and you might get about 150, 200 milligrams. And you do that all day. And what that'll do is that'll result in you having all of your physiological requirements satisfied. So when you sit down, even 50 grams will bring you up to therapy. Yeah. So that's very good. Just do that. And do the ozone, if you have ozone, and hyperbaric oxygen, all those things. But most of all, turn off the thinking. It always reminds me of that song, Tomorrow Never Knows, the Beatles. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. It is not dying, it is being. Great music. I mean, not only great music, but the words were like, whoa, that's a song. Anyway, I don't know if you all appreciate what the Beatles did, but I do. Okay, here we go. What do you do? This is from Elizabeth. She says, what do you do with someone who has both CLL and GCA? Again, CLL is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And I told you they love acronyms. And the other one, the GCA, is great cell arteritis. I've been put on prednisone for GCA, which caused the white blood cells and lymphocytes to drastically increase. I'm wasting a vegan diet and juice with juicing. Yeah, I listen, Elizabeth. Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, remember everyone that those what they call diagnoses don't exist. Okay. Uh, Dr. Lodi doesn't answer questions on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. Oh, I'm sorry. Next one, I'm going down there. You're right. Sorry. I just trying to go slowly. Okay, I'm going to go down there in a second. Okay, I got them at the bottom. Okay. Um, anyway, giants, a great cell arteritis and chronic lymphocytic leukemia are just names that they put on certain conditions. So the chronic lymphocytic leukemia just means that there's a lot of white blood cells, but those white blood cells are really not functional white blood cells because they're clones, and they're really not. And you get like really high amounts, like maybe 200,000, 400,000, really high amounts. And then the giant cell arteritis is when you get these extra white blood cells that are in the artery causing inflammation of the artery. So they're two different things. They don't usually happen concurrently, but they can. And we see that with like a temporal artery uh, can do that. Anyway, so it's rare for it to happen, but it does. And what do? You do the same thing that you always do, and that is you start cleansing. You got to look for it. The dental connections. You got to take care of everything. You got to detoxify, get the colon cleaned. You got to do all that stuff. And why did you get that in the first place? Why did that happen? Because of some sort of toxicity that got into the bone marrow that resulted in producing clones that are leukemia. And then so you've got to get to the root of it, clean out all that, and wake up the immune system. That's what you've got to do. It's a very complicated path, Elizabeth. So if you can get in touch with me, we can. But you're not wasting a vegan. Never wasting. It's never wrong to do the right thing. Never wrong to do the right thing. Okay, now let's go down to TikTok and YouTube. Let's see. Oh yeah, I got to answer this question by Rolf. Are there any stats on the success rate of using alternative treatments compared with traditional treatments? Thank you. Yeah, Rolf. Um, Study in 2005 showed that the meta-analysis Australia, meta-analysis in the U.S. Meta-analysis means they looked at multiple clinical trials and brought all the information together and came to conclusions. So the conclusion was, if you had stage 4 CFCs and you entered the conventional, please, Rolf, it's not traditional treatments. It's conventional treatments. Traditional treatments are traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Chief Rolling Thunder, naturopathic. Tradition means long standing. Long standing means millennia. Okay, conventional medicine has been around since, I guess you could really stretch it and say around 1850, around there. But really, it came into what it is now around 1910, 15, 20. Anyway, that's not a long time. It's a conventional. And conventional means what's being done now, but it also means by convention. Convention means agreement. So it's agreement medicine. So are there any yet? So here's the thing. So people that used conventional therapies and had stage 4 CFCs in America, their 5-year prognosis was they had a 2.1% chance of being alive in 5 years. In Australia, a 2.3% chance of being alive. Now, a lot of studies that don't agree with that. Yeah, that's because they're you got to look at what they're doing. That what they do is, for example, they call preventative care is preventative care. You know what preventative care is in the conventional world? Early diagnosis. That's preventative by early diagnosis. Naming it early is how you prevent it from What? As usual, makes no sense at all. No sense at all. So what they do is they know that, well, people aren't living past 5 years, so let's see if we can find it 2 years earlier, and they'll easily get to the 5 year point, which we consider a cure. Even if they die the next day, it doesn't matter. They fall into the cure cult. And so that's why they're doing mammograms on uh, younger and younger. I'm pretty sure they're going to finally get to the point where they're going to do mammograms on embryos, female embryos, of course. But anyway, and they're doing pap smears. Um, that's preventative. Doing pap smears is preventative. Anyway, so it's mind-boggling. So yeah, so no, there is no data. There's no actual studies or meta-analysis that looked at the two different things. But when we're talking about alternative, when you say alternative, I'm assuming that we mean, because we have defined terms. Alternative means non-conventional, and conventional is chemo, radiation, surgery, immunotherapy. That's it. Yeah. Anything other than that? Well, yeah, there's lots of stuff. Vitamin C, all this other thing. Are there any studies on the vitamin C and all that stuff? Yes. Are there studies on ozone? Yes. Studies on curcumin? Yes. Studies on fasting and cleansing? Yes. But what we practice and what I think is the wisest way to go is integrative, meaning there is a time to do the conventional. There's a time to do surgeries. There's a time to do radiation. There's a time to, but not all the time. And if you're going to use chemo, then do it rationally. Don't just blow the wall out. Anyway, so it's called integrative therapy. Integrative is utilizing all of them and knowing when to use what. Okay, that's the integrative approach. But yeah, I mean, there's no. If we look at the success rate of the truly traditional, which I think I'm going to bring it back to the alternative therapy. A truly traditional is like traditional Chinese medicine. They've been successful for thousands of years. And the conventional is still not successful. So when I want to define success as eliminating the problem from your life indefinitely, that means a minimum of 20 years. Now, there are no conventional studies that look at long term. They do 5 years and occasionally 10 years. So that's really a hard question to answer. It's an impossible question to answer, but I just want you to understand that instead of going to war against your body, and your body's only doing what's necessary, going to war against your body not only doesn't make sense, doesn't work, is painful, and has horrible outcomes, usually, not always. Wouldn't it be better to work with nature? Wouldn't it be better to work with nature and realize that the ability to heal is inherent in all biological organisms? It's an inherent capability, and if you ever doubt that, you just go in the kitchen, cut your finger, and you watch what happens over the next few days. Okay, so that is so we acknowledge, respect, and honor the inherent healing capabilities of the body, and we work to make sure that we can provide all of the requirements, the psychological, spiritual, and biological requirements in order for that healing to take place. Because that healing is not up to us, it's not up to any, it's inherent in the organism. Okay? Because the organism was produced by God, and it is therefore perfect. Not perfect in that it's going to live forever, but perfect. Okay, now let's get down here. Let's see chemotherapy. I'm skipping by a lot of you guys here. Now, these are all ones that went to the website, and eventually we'll get to. Okay, here's Facebook. Is that what you said? Was it? Well, yeah, So Facebook, let's say. This is Cynthia. This is Facebook. Okay. I'd love to know if Dr. Lodi recommends ozonated water. Is it worth to buy an ozonator? Is there a safe amount we can drink? How much is that? Thank you. Okay, good question, Cynthia. Actually, when you ozonate water, ozone is okay. Oxygen is two atoms two atoms of oxygen put together into a form called O2, which is a gas at this temperature, at ambient temperature. Um, Now, when you use ultraviolet rays, will split that, and then so up in the air, the ozone, the oxygen in the atmosphere gets split by the ultraviolet rays of the sun, and an oxygen molecule breaks apart into two single, and they land on another O2, and they, for a brief second moment in time, become an O3. That's ozone. Ozone, highly oxidative, very powerful, more bactericidal than chlorine. So it's why it's used in Olympic pools and stuff like that. But keep in mind that it's very short-lived. So when you ozonate water, it doesn't stay ozonated. There's no ozone in it after a while, because two O3s, which is ozone, become three O2. So you've just increased the oxygenation. And on the way, you killed a lot of bacteria and stuff like that. So get an ozonator, absolutely. And you can ozonate like the water when you're cleaning your vegetables and everything. That will help eliminate some of the petrochemicals and other kinds of pesticides and stuff that are in there. That's very good. But once you ozonate it, it turns into just oxygen water, really. Now, what you want to get is something to put in molecular hydrogen to add to your water after you've ozonated. That'd be great. Molecular hydrogen is very important. It's bubbles, and again, you have to drink that quickly because that evaporates. Now, I don't see any TikTok questions. You guys sending questions? I see Instagram. I see Instagram, but I don't see that. Lung CFCs could be parasitic, could be an infection. I had OHS with double bypass, October 2023. I'm on some blood pressure medication and time release nitro. I had high stress job for 42 years, overweight. During the OHS nightmare, I was x-rayed and then CT scanned. The spot now, CT the second time, has grown. It is between the lobes of the left side, on the left side. A PET scan ordered. I asked about clearing that last week. I only agreed to that. Yep, I got the jab twice, Pfizer, and began the conversion to plant-based. It's taken me 2 weeks to get off chicken and fish. I don't eat red meats. The offending spot looks like a worm on CT. It's about 4.9 centimeters. The pulmonary guy said he didn't think it doubled in size. He thought the first CT was misread. The second, it shows it possibly grew larger. This is all the CT scans. It is not near an airway. The oncologist I've seen for polycythemia vera and controlling by diet were nuts. Were nuts. She saw the second CT before the pulmonologist. Prior to any PET scan, she told me that it was lung CFCs. Told me my treatment options: biopsy, radiation, chemo. I'm currently working on a parasite detox with juicing, plant-based diet. I walk 2 to 3 miles a day. I am having a tough time mentally. Yes, I pray. I'm working towards a meditation regimen. Not mastered it yet. Any recommendations? I got a ton, Carol. Dental, Carol, you got to go look at the dental. You got to get a real biological dentist. I don't know where you live, but there's an organization they belong to, and you know they're biological dentists. If under services on their email, I mean, on their website, they do not do put in root canals. They do not try to save root canals. They only take them out, sterilize them with ozone, and they fill up, seal up the hole with platelet-rich fibrin from your blood. They don't put in any metals. They do biocompatibility testing to make sure anything they put in your mouth is going to be compatible with you. Um, and they look for cavitations. They do a 3D cone beam uh, CT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got to find a real one, and you got to do that because that could be the problem. Very, very often, it's highly associated with it. Okay. The other thing you got to do is you got to do a juice cleanse, minimum of 6 weeks. Okay. Nothing but celery, cucumber, spinach, kale, lemon, and apple. The basic. Celery, cucumber for the water, for the volume of water. Kale and spinach for the nutrients, and then lemon to modify the any bitterness, and then apple to modify any sourness. And you can change the apples for carrots. You can modify that all the way around, but I recommend the celery and cucumber because it gives you lots of volume. Okay, and then you can add other things. I like kale because it's a cruciferous vegetable. It's got some magical stuff in it. Anyway, you can add things, whatever. Drink a lot of it. Make sure it tastes delicious. If you got to put an extra red apple or whatever, extra carrots, do it just so it's delicious. And drink 3, 4, 5 liters a day for 6, 8 weeks. Do that, do that, do that. Get colon hydrotherapy twice a week during this period. Get lymphatic work. Go to bed early. Eat only when you do resume after eating, after your juice cleanse. Eat only human food and eat it only between in a 4 to 6 hour window. Okay, and stop eating 5 hours before sleep. Yes, 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 yes. When you meditate, you have to work on it. Just start listening to your breathing. 2 minutes, 5 times a day. 2 minutes, 5 times a day. 2 minutes, 5 times a day. Uh, you got to do all that, and then uh, you got. It's not a jab. A jab is what a friend does or a branch does. It was a bioweapon. Uh, okay, so uh, not eating animals is a very important thing for them, for the environment, and then for us. Uh, you got to do a parasite cleanse, obviously, especially if it looks like a worm. Uh, Even if it didn't look like a worm, you got to do a parasite cleanse, and that is you can go if you go to drlodi.com. I have a webinar in there for parasites, and you'll get all that and the protocols and all that. So very, very important. You've got to do all that. Natto kinase, 2 to 3 pills on an empty stomach 3 times a day because you had the bioweapon. Good, you're moving around. Good, 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 good. But you're having a tough time mentally means you're afraid. They've got you afraid. Don't be afraid because whatever they're saying about it, it's not true. I've seen thousands of times it just goes away. It just goes away. Just like it came, it can go away. And it's nothing that got into you. It's your body adapting to stuff. So that's why you got to do everything I said. Okay. Renee on Facebook. Can you go into more how to treat breast hormonal? Should be on 3 wormer, or do you have to take fungus killer at the same time? All right, so breast, remember, estrogen receptor positive means estrogen receptor alpha is positive, but the estrogen receptor beta, when stimulated, shrinks tumors. So that's soy. Eat lots of soy. Flax seeds. You've got to be on at least 3 for the parasite cleanse, at least 3 dewormers, 1 or 2 of the antiprotozoals like nitazoxanide or tinidazole, and also on at least fluconazole, one of the fungals. Anyway, this is a good time for me to bring up something. Somebody said to me in a comment, I think it was it? Oh gosh, hold on. All right. It's telling me. Okay. Somebody brought this up and they said they were very surprised that I would recommend these heavy drugs for the parasites. And I wanted to bring this up. It's very important. Why would I? Because you're right. You're absolutely right. Hello, what happened there? What happened to what happened to gosh. Oh, come on. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, I guess Instagram's back on. That's so crazy. I don't understand. I just don't understand. It just shut off. My God. I don't know what happened to you guys on Instagram just shut off. Ridiculous. Anyway, I was answering the question. Yeah, we'll talk about CFCs and mental health in a moment. I want to thank you for bringing that up. I just want to talk about why would I be recommending all these drugs? Because I don't usually, really, I hate drugs uh, passionately. I hate drugs passionately. They're not, they don't solve anything. They usually cause problems. However, I've come to understand that, if we look up the word, you remember there's three descriptions of our relationships with other organisms that are living in us or on us. Mutualism, where we're both receiving benefit, which is most of our um, gut flora. Commensalism, where one is receiving benefit and the other one is not being harmed. And then there's parasitism, parasite, where one is receiving benefit and the other one is being harmed. Okay. Well, I think that when we were living a more natural lifestyle, not a more natural, a natural lifestyle, we're not living anything natural now, um, that our immune systems were stronger. We weren't exposed to all the immune suppressive things that we're exposed to now, and that we had a really powerful immune system. And so, what a lot of what are now parasites were probably commensal at that point. Um, and they were just in us. They were living, and we weren't harmed. But I think more and more commensals have become parasites. I think that's what's happened, absolutely, because we are when I look, even for example, when we're just dealing with CFCs in our center now, we have noticed a significant change over the last 5 years, 6 years. People are just sicker now than they've ever been. Okay, everyone is sicker now than they've ever been, and I think fundamentally that has to do with not only the cumulative toxins that we're exposed to in the air and the food, and on purpose drop. I mean, in addition to that, we are being bombarded with, not bombarded, flooded with electromagnetic frequencies that we never ever had, and it's just wiping out our immune systems. And then we're getting injections. I mean, it's just incredible. So that's what's happening. So now, in the old, whereas maybe 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, herbs worked perfectly for these guys, for the few that were, for the few parasites that we had. Now, I mean, if you were to read what I get in terms of mail every day about what people are experiencing, I mean, there are worms coming out of the nose, out of the mouth, out of the vagina, out of the rectum, crawling through the skin. There are people with these things coming out of their head. I mean, you know, okay, so we're no longer what we were, and also we don't know what's happened to these guys, to these microorganisms who become macroorganisms when they become adults. The worms, I mean. So we got to get rid of them, and we got to use big guns. And why do we have to use big guns? Because if you don't eliminate them, if you don't kill them, they will migrate and they'll go to another organ. And you don't want them going to the pancreas. You don't want them going into the heart. You just okay. You want to get rid of them, and so you've got to just do it. That's why we do that now. Okay, we wouldn't have to if it was 300 years ago, 400 years ago. No, but it's no longer that. We are weakened immunologically. We are weakened psychologically. We are weakened. Okay, physiologically, we are weakened. Okay, we've got to come back to earth. We've got to take our shoes off and go and live on the earth again. We've got to come back to earth. We've got to get out of this, what they call modern, advanced, whatever this people view this way of life as being fantastic. It's the opposite. Okay, it is anti-life, anti-health. All right, so right now we need to get rid of these guys because they are causing us a lot of problems. Okay, so that's the reason if you guys want to know. Now, talking about mental health and CFCs, mental health is, again, uh, health, optimal functioning of the organism, mental health, optimal functioning of the mind. Now, the mind, what is optimal functioning of the mind? First of all, the mind is an extremely adversary. So, just like with your hands, when you're not using your hands to for something like to eat or to plant or play music, when you're not losing your hands, just set them down. You put them down. You relax them. You don't wave them in the air. Our mind is the same. When you're using it to accomplish some kind of goal, when you're not using it, turn it off. Give it something to get focused on. Give it a mantra. Give it your breath. Okay. Otherwise, the mind will go all over the place and back in an instant and drive you mad. Okay. Now, mental health means balance. Balance means being able to use your mind as a tool and then turning it off. Now, remember something about everything you think happened in the past. First of all, it doesn't matter because it isn't right now. And if it isn't right now, it isn't right now. But whatever happened yesterday, what do you know about that? Well, you have a fragmented perception, a memory of a perception of a moment, or an or yeah, that's it. A fragmented recollection of your perception of what happened. Okay, now is that what happened? Well, if we have four other people in that in the at the same sharing that experience with you, there might be four different interpretations of what happened, four different perceptions. And so the question becomes objectively is what really did happen? And then the more important question is, does it matter right now? Because right now is right now. And am I going to give up right now for my fragmented perception of yesterday? Am I going to not enjoy the moment or deal with the moment or live in the moment because of a fragmented perception of what I think occurred yesterday? What? That's kind of not make sense. And then what else am I going to be freaked out about? About what the potential future? Future could go a trillion different ways. So whatever my idea about the future is, it's an idea, it's a story. The past is a story. And other than the story about tomorrow and the story about yesterday, both of which, by the way, aren't. They aren't. Okay. Between those two is should be, could have been, should have been, maybe, and if. And if we can all agree those aren't. So if all that stuff isn't, why am I allowing it to disrupt the moment, which is the only thing that's real? But okay. He was, I, my, okay. And now what? What's going on today? Okay. What's going on today? How are you right now? I'm okay. You have any pain? A little bit, yeah, pain. Okay. Um, and any good things happening right now? Anyway, they're all stories, okay? They're stories. And I was just talking to a really good friend about people that have, and we see this in religious fights. Religious fights remind me of, remember the Hatfields and the McCoys? It's an old American legend where I guess there were two groups of people, families, who had been at war against each other for I don't know how long, decades. And the current generation probably didn't even remember what it all started about, but they were still at war. And that's what it reminds me about. If we look at the three main Western religions, right? Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. They all have different perceptions of stories in the past. They agree on some stories, but they have different perceptions of stories in the past and the implications of those stories in the present. And so for these reasons, they're fighting and they hate each other. Right? The Muslims are going to remember the Crusades. Probably it's one of the bloodiest times in human history. The Jews are going to remember all the stories of persecution way back to Egypt and then to Nazi Germany and all that. And then the Christians are going to remember they were being killed, I guess, back in Rome. And I mean, everyone's got their story about what happened. And it's kind of like I'm Italian, right? And my mother, when she left New York, she was married to my father, and great, wonderful man, but he was ready to stay in New York and to carry on the tradition of, having 12 kids and all that sort of thing. He was a good man, very nice, loving, kind man. But she said, wait a minute, I don't want to keep doing this. And so she left, she took me, and we moved to California. I was 2, so I don't remember it. But anyway, but anyway, from what I hear, so one of the reasons is because when she was a little girl in New York, Italians there's a lot of prejudice against Italians. They called them wops. right, without paper, but wops, just like they call Mexican spics and they call Irish mix and all these names. My kids used to come into me, you, somebody called you a name, huh? Oh, I said, what if they called you a banana? Would that have hurt you? Okay, well, it's just a name anyway. So whatever. But my mother used to be made fun of. She would be like she'd have Italian food in her lunch when she brought her lunch to school, and it'd be, I don't know, maybe like a sausage and bell pepper, pepper sandwich, which is like delicious. Um, but and she'd have to eat like almost with her face in the bag to hide herself. And she was beaten up after school every day and stuff like that. And so that's how her memory. That's why she didn't teach me Italian. She wanted to make sure I didn't learn Italian because she didn't want me to be Italian. So anyway, so that's a story, and I could live on it. I could go with that. I could go with that story and let it ruin my life or something like that, or I could just realize it's a story and at the time, whatever. But it has no relevance right now. No relevance right now. The stories have no relevance right now. And are the stories true or are they not true? We don't know. Does it matter? No. Even if it was true, does it matter right now? Okay, I'm trying to give us perspective on that and learn that we need to live now, be here now. Okay, because yesterday isn't, tomorrow isn't. Okay, what is. And are we going to wake up? Are we going to sit up in our second to the last breath of this life? Are we going to say, wait a minute, I blew it. I wasn't present. I wasn't present for this incredible gift called life. I was too busy thinking about what did, and I missed the moment. And I had the potential of having an incredibly blissful life, but I was too busy with my stories. So let's not fix the mind, because the mind, by definition, is not a real place. It's the house of illusion. Let's find the only place that's real, and that's now. So when you need your mind, absolutely, got to study, drive the car, whatever you got to do. Put the mind, engage the mind. But when you're not using it, give it a pole to climb up and down, and tell them you'll call it when you need it. Don't let it attack you. And that pole can be your breathing. That pole can be a mantra. That pole can be anything. All right. So that's what I wanted to say about CFCs and mental health. And unfortunately, you guys, I don't see any. I'm going to start tomorrow. Next time I'm going to start with the bottom and go up. Okay. So, but let's start with, and I didn't get to your Facebook. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'll do that next week. Okay. So, okay, I realize that. And TikTok, if you're sending in questions, send it in and let us know, so that I don't see any questions from TikTok. Thoughts on dry fasting for 5 or 7 days? Yeah, my thought is don't do it. I'll explain that next week, because we're already at 9:15. But dry fasting is crazy. It's crazy. Okay, 5 to 7 days. Because remember, all our biochemistry requires water, fluid. All of our biochemistry requires fluid. So if we're not getting enough fluid, and then all the biochemical process can't go on. So all the benefits of fasting would not be able to happen. Okay. All right, you guys. Sorry that it's up. Time is up, and if I didn't get to everybody, I apologize. So sawadee krap, namaste, aloha. See you next week.